Now, the phrase mum guilt is one we've all heard of, but not all of us experience. But pop star Paloma Faith has spoken about so-called second baby guilt that she's felt since the birth of her second daughter earlier on this year. In a social media post, she explains that she feels torn between the two kids. The new one is like a new love. I'm fascinated and besotted by her, and she needs me more than she needs anyone else. Then the first one and I miss each other so much, we are heartbroken. Can you relate to that torn emotion, Nadia?
I really can. In fact, when I was coming towards the end of my pregnancy with Kiki, I felt almost like I was the guilt of infidelity. That's when I would just look at Maddie, just longingly thinking, I don't mean it, I don't mean it. And I couldn't imagine loving anyone as much as I loved her. So I also felt really guilty about Kiki. Of course, the love doubled, it didn't half. But yeah, I love that post because I think there's so much that we feel guilty about in those early days, and there's nothing like another woman saying, this is how I feel, and you go, oh, thank God for that.
Yeah.
This is exactly how I felt.
Yeah.
I bet you didn't have any guilt.
Well, I guess because there was a big age gap between mine. So, you know, Gary and I met and he had Lauren and I had Ellie. So Lauren was about 17 when Grace was born and Ellie was about 12. So they'd kind of, there they are.
Oh.
And they had kind of had their quite a long time with us on our own, you know. So Gary obviously had been very involved with Lauren's life and Ellie had me as a single mum for 12 years. So actually it was fine because I think actually that, you know, Ellie and Grace had a really strong bond because they were living in the same house but just as Ellie became 12 and started to get a bit more independent, I had this baby to look after again. So it kind of worked out quite well, really.
And what were your boys like, Penny, when they went from 1 to being 2?
Yeah, I remember Alistair, he was about 5 when we discovered that finally after 3 IVFs, I was pregnant with Aidan and he was praying for a boy, and it was, of course. So I just made sure that right from the beginning he was very much involved. So, you know, like he would feed Aidan and teach him how to play football and so in every sort of part of his life. But yeah, there was that kind of guilt of sharing my time around, including my third boy, my husband, of course.
I think sometimes it's a bit easier when they're a bit older because Maddie was 4 when Kiki came along and she thought I was chaotic, so she was very much watching me the whole time.
Where did she get that idea from?
To make sure I was doing things properly. So she took on this responsibility almost for the baby. But yours are quite young,
Yeah,
aren't they?
there's 2 years and 2 months between mine, so...
What's that like?
Chaotic is a word that I would use. Tiring is another one that I would use. But because Alfie wasn't old enough to register that he wasn't going to be on his own anymore.
And get too set in his ways, maybe.
Yeah, and we come from, you know, a big family, so he's used to being around loads of kids. So I think he just assumed this was another one. And they get on really, really well. Yeah, look, there they are. They get on really, really well because they are so close in age. So I didn't really have that sort of second baby guilt type experience. But then again, their dad was at home for 5 months on paternity leave. So Alfie never really had a chance to be on his own and feel left out because if I was concentrating on Florence, they had dad.
Right.
So Dad was able to be there and sort of take him out and keep him
occupied, isn't it?
You know, I will always shout from the rooftops about, you know, people taking paternity leave because that has such an impact on the family.
And why should anyone miss out on those glorious early weeks as well?
They've had lots of comments on this. Kirsty, I'm due my second next month. My daughter's 10. I feel like the big gap will help. Yes, Kirsty, take it from me, it will. As she's very independent and wants me less and less, but I'm still so anxious about it all. And Vicky says, I'm definitely guilty of the photos, she said, because loads of my firsts doing all his first, but not as many of my second. And her husband passed away 2 years ago, and she notices she hasn't got as many pictures of him with the second as she has with the first. And I do think that's something maybe that I'm more guilty of. You don't take as many pictures of your second.
Well, I keep saying to Kiki, oh, they're in the box upstairs, Sean. One day she can ask to see the box.